Hi there, welcome to Floating in Books. This video is going to be a part 2 of a video I did last year, and that I had completely forgotten I didn't do a part 2 of, and that is all the favorite bands and artists' music I like listening to. So, let me get stuck in. Before we get into it though, welcome to everybody watching today. This is my second YouTube channel. I have a main channel where I talk about makeup, but I have a second one to talk about everything that isn't makeup. So I mainly talk about fashion and books on here, a bit of lifestyle. If I travel, I like to do a vlog from time to time. But I mainly started way back in the day, back when it was just the blog here. I was really talking about a lot of the music I loved, and I did a video like this last year where I think I shared 9 artists and bands that I really enjoy, and then I looked at that video again. I was like, oh, but I haven't told them about this, and I haven't told them about this, and I haven't told them about this. So these are 10 other artists who I really enjoy, where I think most of these artists I've seen live, sometimes several times, and I pretty much have their entire catalog of music. I'm a physical music lover, even though I tend to use my Spotify account a lot more ever since you can't see it, but it's like just off camera. I've got a little Google speaker thing. Ever since I've got those, I've been using Spotify a lot more, and my physical media a little bit less. But one of the albums that I'm holding here is an album that I have purchased in the past couple of weeks. Because it's a band I love and I have all their other albums, so I figured I had to buy it as well. So let me tell you about all of these. So these are also some, like, long-standing favorites, you could say. Like, these are bands that have been with me for, like, the past 2 decades, or for as long as they've been around, really. Some of these bands are also pretty well known, so I'm pretty sure that some of the names I'm about to mention you will be familiar with. I think in my first video I talked more so about like lesser known artists who I felt needed a bigger platform, but this is just going to feature some really big names. Let's start with what I think is going to be the biggest one, and it's Radiohead. I am someone who's a late adapter to the Radiohead game, as in I was around when Radiohead first came to fame in the 90s with OK Computer, you could say, and like some of their previous albums. I was in my MTV era for sure, and I remember not liking some of the songs that are actually on this album, OK Computer, which I think by now has to be one of my favorites. So Paranoid Android, I remember the music video, seeing that a lot, and also Karma Police, like the video with the car. And I did not like Radiohead one bit at the time. Like when I was 13, 14 years old, this really couldn't appease me. So Radiohead is something I got into later when I met some friends and they were really into Radiohead, and I gave it more of a listen. And as I started to get more and more into alternative music, the more I started liking them. And I'm holding up OK Computer because I think that's the album most people know best. There are so many great songs by Radiohead. I have a couple of them that I have in my all-time like favorite playlist, and some of them aren't even on albums as well. So yeah, Radiohead is a band. I think I've seen them live like 4 or 5 times as well. They're incredible. If you get a chance to see them, definitely do. I'm not sure if they're still like together, because the last time I heard anything sort of like Radiohead related was when 2 of the members of Radiohead, Tom York, the singer, and Johnny Greenwood, the one of the musicians in the band, teamed up with a jazz drummer, and they made a new band called The Smile, whose album I also have, and I saw them live as well in Amsterdam. That was actually one of my like first post-COVID performances I went to, and that was stellar as well. Like, they're incredibly good musicians, and Radiohead just can do no wrong. I do feel I have had my Radiohead fill when it comes to like seeing them live. I'm not like scrambling to get tickets anymore because I've seen them so many times. But yeah, they're a really solid music pick, I feel. If you want to like branch out and you've never listened to a lot of alternative music, then I think Radiohead is like mainstream alternative music for people who want to dip their toes in, as long as you stay away from like the weirder things that they do. They are definitely a band that can be quite experimental with how they like to go about things musically, with when it comes to like releasing their music and also like inserting like different sounds and all that. But if you stick to their older stuff, you'll get a good feel of like, 90s music and like the more alternative side of things, I feel. Another huge name, I think, in music that most people will know is Florence and the Machine. Now, Florence and the Machine is an artist I saw live back when they were really, really small. Like, this is now a stadium, sells out everything kind of performer. And I saw her back when she first had her first album out. This is the Between Two Lungs extended edition. I also have the regular edition, and I actually discovered her through some of my indie playlists, and I found a demo by her from a song called Kiss with a Fist, and it's nothing like what she ended up doing. So especially if you listen to the first album, there are a couple of her more like indie roots in there, and there were a couple of poppy songs that did really well, and that's what we sort of get more of in later albums, I feel, which is why my interest for Florence and the Machine kind of like goes in and out of focus for me. Like, some of it I really like, and then there's other times where I'm just really not into it anymore, but I really, really enjoy her vocals. She's an amazing singer. She has this really big voice that she like uses, like has some really good use for. And I did enjoy some of the later albums actually that she did. There were a couple of things that were a little bit more dancey as well, like exploring that. So I do really enjoy it if musicians don't just stick to one thing. But I think if you know the songs that she's famous for and you start listening to some of her older things, you may actually be surprised, because if you manage to find Kiss with a Fist, which is a pretty heavy song to listen to because it's like about a couple that are both as bad to each other, like beating each other up the entire time within their relationship. So it's a bit like about domestic violence, but they kind of look, it goes both ways. So it's pretty weird from that perspective, but it's just like a raging guitar and her shouting into a microphone for like a solid 2.5 minutes. So if you're familiar with her more poppy things, then definitely explore her older stuff that goes a little bit more rock alternative. Like, it's a little bit more like, it's very much of its time though. So if you were around for like late noughties alternative music, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, if you've never listened to Florence and the Machine and you want alternative music that's very palatable and very sort of mainstream radio friendly, then definitely check her out. In a similar vein, Lana Del Rey. Another artist who I was on before video games ever even launched. But I remember her really being like buzzed about within the music community. Like, oh, there's this new artist. I just really enjoy the melancholy and like the sadness and darkness that these songs have. Yet it's delivered in such a poppy, catchy, easy to listen to way that it sort of lures you in. It's almost like manipulation in music. That's the way how I feel about Lana Del Rey. I'm behind on her releases because she has a tendency to release a lot. So I'm a little confused like where we're at, but I have a couple of her albums. I don't think I ever managed to snag like a live performance, but I've seen videos of her and she isn't the best live, I feel. But I definitely do appreciate her like songs, and it's like, it's a mood. Her music is a mood, and it's a mood I very often like. If I were to like tell you a little bit about the kind of playlists that I listen to on Spotify, because I'm a playlist listener on Spotify, I don't listen to single songs. I kind of like pick a playlist for the mood. I really enjoy like, late night jazz, night shift, those kind of names. And like sometimes it goes more into like techno and beats and that sort of thing, or more into like the jazz realm or alternative realm. But I listen to a lot of like sad indie, chill out, melancholy kind of music. Like that's my jam, and this fits into that perfectly. So I don't know. I just like depressing music, I guess. I just really, really do. So if you need that like really bright, like happy pick-me-up, this is not your vibe, because there are some really dark themes within her music. This is actually the extended edition of Born to Die. This is the Paradise edition, which has the B-side is actually better. Those are some of my favorite songs. So Ride, Cola, American, Blue Velvet, Gods and Monsters is like one of my all-time favorites as well. So yeah, Lana Del Rey is another one of my favorites. So check her out if you don't know about her yet. I got into London Grammar because I liked other bands before it. So if you were around for the XX, I don't think they're still around. But London Grammar is very much like the vibe of the XX, but with more vocals. And it's like a little bit more down to earth, I feel. Like the X and X went a little bit more into like electronic vibes, and this keeps it quite organic, which I like. They're from London as far as I know. Like they're English. I've seen them live once or twice, I think. I think they have 3 albums out, and this is like I don't really listen to albums on repeat a lot. I very often like put them, like I make them part of my playlist on my phone and I just listen to the songs as is. I hardly ever listen to an album from front to finish if I'm not listening to it in this kind of format. I always put things on shuffle. That's what I've done for 20 years. But this always stands out to me. Again, quite sad, morose, melancholic kind of melodies, but very, very minimal. If you like minimal, sort of very minimal arrangements, you'll love this. So one of my favorites, this is their debut album actually, it's If You Wait, but they have some really, really nice songs. Their last album had some really good songs, but that one had to grow on me because they recorded it in California, which is also why some of the songs are like labeled that. And there is this sunny undertone to some of those songs that I couldn't really place with how like melancholic and like depressing some of their other work was. But then when I started listening to the lyrics more so, I felt that last album that I have, at least, I'm not sure if it's their last one. I'm a little out of touch with like new releases and stuff. But I think it was called like California Summer or something, like California Beach. Like it has this beachy vibe, and it's like what Lana Del Rey does as well. Like all of the music sounds very uplifting and the way it's sung, but then you listen to the actual lyrics and the topics are incredibly serious, but they're putting their spin on it. So if you like I feel that Lana Del Rey, it can sometimes feel a little bit bombastic almost because of the way the music is arranged, but with them it's like a guitar and a piano and a drum computer and her singing, and that's it. Like that's all they'll do. One of my favorite songs by them is actually off of their second album. It's called Rooting for You, and it's just a piano, and it takes a really long time for there to even be a beat, and then her just singing along to it, and it's just beautiful. If I just like, this is the kind of music I listen to when I'm at home alone and I'm just sitting in the dark and I want to cry my eyes out. This is what I listen to. If you need crying music, go London Grammar. We all need that kind of song, right? Where you can just like let it all out. And I enjoy like singing along to this as well, because her voice is pretty much in the same sort of timbre that I can sort of sing. I used to have singing lessons like decades ago, but I can kind of hold a tune. So yeah, I do sometimes if I want to practice my vocal skills, I tend to sing along to a bit of London Grammar. So more British artists, because I do really enjoy mainly like artists from like the UK, it seems. I think it's also because if they are in the UK, they tend to make their way over to Europe for like tours and stuff a little bit easier than most American artists do. So I think that's also why I'm into them a little bit more. And one band who went viral on TikTok, if you're on TikTok and you were there last summer, you know everything about Jungle. Jungle is a band who doesn't show up in their own videos, but they hire dancers to dance in their videos. And for this album, they made a visual album where every single song, the same group of dancers comes up, and one of the routines from one of those videos went viral on TikTok and everybody was copying it. The choreographer who, explained where his inspiration came from and like explaining the routine, etc., etc. So this is their last album. The song that went viral is Back on 74. It was my most listened to song on Spotify because this just puts a smile on my face. So the other two things we've just talked about is depressing, sad music. This is where we get happy. Jungle is the perfect blend of modern day funk with a hint of old school R&B and a bit of a disco vibe all in one go. This, if you play their music, you just want to get up and dance, but in a very contemporary sort of way. Like, it's not super like techno heavy, but there's definitely like an electronic music element to it, and they are amazing live. I saw them back in the day with their first album. That's an album I have played into the ground. I can I can sing along to every single song on that album. This last one I've listened to a little bit less because I only got it in the past couple of weeks. But it's a vibe. It's a very happy vibe. This song really marked the summer of 2023 for me, and that's just how I feel about Jungle. Like, Jungle has all of the great songs out there that I just want to get up and dance to. I really enjoy vibing to Time. And now I can't think of the other song from their first album. Oh, why can't I think of this? But yeah, there's a couple of their songs that I have like in a separate playlist of like songs I like to dance to, and Jungle is a heavy hitter in that playlist for sure. It's just one of those things where, you know, you just get up and boogie around your house kind of vibe, and that's what Jungle is. They do some incredibly crazy things with like rhythms, and like these songs are incredibly clever if you start listening to them like frame by frame. Like, if you start like dissecting how it's built up, it's genius, and that's why it works. And the best part about this band as well is that when I saw them live, because I had never, like, there were no images of this band online when they first like came to the scene, and they were very hyped up. It was all about the music. And then you saw them, and they walk up on stage, and they are this complete ragtag group of people. That's how they look, like they've like just pulled people from the street and put them together, and it somehow works. And it works, and it works really, really well. If you ever get the chance to see Jungle live, definitely do. And then we just have 5 bands that I enjoy. A very, very long-standing favorite. This has been with me since my early student days. If I listen to Interpol, I go back to my student room and first, like, being in college and doing all that. That was their very first album, called Turn on the Bright Lights. This is the last one I think they did. This is The Other Side of Make Believe, but their albums are just incredibly solid. I think I kind of lost, like, this is a band, like almost every band has it, where, you know, if their first album does really well, it's like second album slump. So their second album I never got into, but I have liked every single album they have done since. As with a lot of the other things I'm talking about today, Interpol is just a vibe. If you like, sort of like, I shouldn't call them an 80s band, but they definitely have listened very well to like alternative music of the 80s, and they are implementing it into what they do now. They've been around for at least 2 decades, because I remember buying that first album my first year of college, which was 2002. That's how long these guys have been with me. My favorite song by them still till this day is off their first album. It's Obstacle Number 2. Still love it. But this is another album I just put on and I just play it, and it makes for the best playlist music. And I just feel that nobody isn't really ever talking about Interpol anymore, which is such a sad thing, because they do some really solid things that I just really enjoy till this day. And there's a reason why they've been with me for 2 decades. Another band that kind of had to grow on me, I actually had to see these guys live before I could appreciate them, and that was Two Door Cinema Club. So this is another one of those indie bands that I found through my playlists, and they had a couple of songs that I liked okay, but I never truly got into it until I was at a festival. I think it was about a decade ago, actually. I went to Rockwerchter with some friends, and I was like just lounging on the field, and I was like practically falling asleep, and then they started their set, and I was like so caught up with the music that I just woke up and I had to like dance along. So Two Door Cinema Club had that effect on me. They definitely have this like dancey sort of thing, especially on this album. This is Game Show, which I don't think is their like bestseller or anything, but it's the one I really got into at the time. And they were the last band I saw live before COVID hit. So they will always have that sort of like, that was the last sort of concert I went to before we got COVID. And this is just, yeah, one of my albums that I listen to by them quite a bit. I have a, like, what's like my favorite? Like, I do like the song Game Show on here as well. And yeah, I think they're like everything on here is a banger, really. So it's just one of those things where, again, a bit like Jungle, but this is a little bit more like guitar heavy. So this goes more into the like the rock vibes, but then it's danceable at the same time. I just like a bit of Two Door Cinema Club for that reason. And they've been around for a while as well, because when did that? I think one of their first songs I found around like 2008-ish, I think. Another band I saw live, and I've seen them live several times, is Vampire Weekend. This is my favorite album by them. It's the Modern Vampires of the City. They're a New York-based band, and New York features very heavily in a lot of their songs. And they're another one of those like indie darling bands that have been with me for some time. Their last one, Father of the Bride, was a bit mellow for me. Like, I didn't like the way that was going, and I don't think they've really released an album since. Again, a band I saw right before COVID hit. I think it was that fall that they were like traveling around touring. So that's when I saw them. And they played all the favorites. So that was really, really great. Like with some bands, whenever they release new music, they don't really go back to their older stuff. But I love it when bands do it. And Vampire Weekend knew the assignment and they delivered. Step on here is great. Hannah Hunt, Everlasting Arms is one of my favorites. So, they just do some really solid things. It's catchy and you want to sing along, but there's always something quirky that throws you off as well. So, Vampire Weekend it can be a little bit Marmite for some people, I'm sure. Like, this is not super radio friendly, but it does have this like, once you really get sort of like used to it, I guess you can really appreciate it, and they do have some fun lyrics as well. Another indie darling band is Arcade Fire. Now, they have gotten into some heavy weather the past couple of years because one of the band members was actually a little bit like not that nice to a lot of people around him, and I think he's now left, which was like the brother of the lead singer, I think, was the problematic one. I'm not sure anymore. But Arcade Fire, again, a band I've seen live like once or twice as well. This is Everything Now, which I think is my favorite album by them, but I also really enjoy Neon Bible and some of their older stuff. This is another band that is just incredibly like heralded in the online music community. Arcade Fire is like an indie darling, you could say. They do some really fun things. A lot of their songs are social critiques, especially on this one. It's not on this one, but on Neon Bible, you get a song called Normal People, which I think is like a good like critique on like how society works. And there is one here, I think it's Everything Now, the title song actually. But there are quite a few songs on here that are like about mental health and like how we go about things nowadays. That's why the album is called Everything Now. This came in 2 editions. There were different covers for the different editions, but the songs on it were the same, in case you know this cover. But yeah, Arcade Fire is one of those bands as well that's quite experimental in how they put songs together and how they write things and how they put the whole thing together. So that's why Arcade Fire is another one. And again, I've loved them since their very, very first album. In fact, I think I have an EP by them. Like, something they released before they even had an album out. Yeah. I've enjoyed their music for a long time as well. I remember talking about them with colleagues when I was at my very first full-time job, which in education, so that was more than a decade ago for sure. And then finally, I need to talk about this band, Arctic Monkeys. Like Florence and the Machine, a band that's been with me through all of the indie playlists that I've listened to for more than 2 decades for sure. And this is another band where I sort of dip my toe in from time to time. I don't love everything they do. And they have definitely shifted gears in recent years, and it started really with this album. Before this, it was like indie rock. That's what they were doing. But as they're getting older and they're sort of like starting to lose their wild hair, it seems. That's how we would say that in Dutch. I don't think that's an expression in English, but I like it too much, so I'm just directly translating it. As they're getting older and they're maturing and they're like getting different preferences in life, they have started to create very different music, which I know not everybody enjoys. Like if you listen to some of their really old songs, things like Fake Tales from San Francisco is the first thing that pops into my head. It's very much that like 2006, 2007-ish indie rock from the UK. If you know what I'm talking about, it was like, you know, the twee hair and like the mini skirts and the piercings and all. Like they very much stem from that sort of like mid to late naughty sort of indie scene, like the whole Tumblr vibe. Arctic Monkeys, for sure. But then they did Tranquility Base, Hotel and Casino, and this is really, really good. This is really them showing what they can actually do musically as well, and that it's not just about like getting as much noise out of a guitar as possible. And I think their last album, The Car, I like a little bit less than I do this. But there again, they're playing around with a very different sound. So I'm very, very interested to see what Arctic Monkeys actually comes up with in their future albums. I know the lead singer has been part of like other projects as well that have gone a little bit more jazzy even. So he's also like exploring his vocal range and what he can actually do. So some really lovely things, and another band that's like reinventing themselves all the time. And I think that's kind of what we have going on in the entire stack I've told you about today. Like these are all artists that have been around for at least a decade, who are still active, they still create new music, they're still touring, and they try to do different things all the time. And that's something I really enjoy. If I've been listening to them for such a long time, it's because they reinvent themselves and then they do something differently. So yeah, these are some of my long-standing, all-time favorite, more modern artists, you could say, that I've actually seen live, that I've sometimes seen several times, and that I really enjoy. And if you've never listened to any of their music, then I hope you do, because else you're missing out. So thank you so very much for joining me here today. I really hope you enjoyed hearing some of my music favorites. I would love to know in a comment down below if you have any music favorites. Did you know any of these? Maybe these are your favorites as well. I would love to know. And then I hope you would like to stay tuned for more. And then I hope to see you again next week with a new video, because I come on here once a week to tell you everything about books, fashion, and lifestyle related topics. So I hope you're here for that. We're almost like, we could hit 1,000 subscribers, I think, in the next couple of months. So I hope we can do that. And then I hope to see you also over on the other channel for all of the makeup content. So wherever you join me, thank you so very much for being here. And then I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye.